Justin Turner.
Yep.
What has stood out in your conversations with him so far?
Conversations. I think that he absolutely loves hitting. What he's done throughout his career with the swing change, him being around so many different really good hitters, he just loves to talk hitting. He has a really easy, kind of confident way about the way that he talks to players. And it sounds cliche, but he really is almost like another hitting coach in there. Obviously, he does all of his work and has a really good feel for what he's trying to do, but he's looking to try and help and give information and do whatever he can for our guys.
How does that benefit your job?
Yeah, I think it's naturally going to make it easier just because I think that gives an avenue for our players to talk to somebody else who really understands the swing, understands the approach and the game planning. And he's just around a lot. There's a lot of times where coaches are with other players or in cages and they don't have access to us at all times. But JT's just floating around and talking to guys. He'll walk into a cage and hit with guys, and he's so confident with what he does and how he talks about hitting that it's been great.
For a guy like Gage Workman,
Yeah.
Who's been at AA a few years, what are some of the challenges for a guy trying to make that jump and stick at the big league level?
Yeah, I think like him just knowing that he has to make this roster kind of coming out of spring training. It's not like a normal minor league invite where you're kind of up there to kind of showcase what you can do, and then a lot of times you get sent down and hope you make it back up to the big leagues at some point. So he feels a little bit of that pressure, but just getting to know him and watching him work, he has a very level-headed, he has a confidence about him. So he's going out there putting in what he needs to do, and so far we've seen some really good things from him. He hits the ball really hard. He's made great decisions so far. So there's a lot of really good things that he's done, which we knew, right? And that's part of the reason why we selected him in that Rule 5 draft.
Kind of on that, just what do you look for knowing like you guys in a couple weeks are going to have to make a decision on him?
Yeah, I mean, the quality of at bat is really big. You just want to see how comfortable a guy is in a big league box. It's, facing big league pitching and going out there day after day. And he's getting a lot of at bats. And that's kind of the idea is like we need to see him and kind of see what he has to offer. And so far it's been really good.
You take us through Hoerner and Shaw and their readiness to. We heard Shaw's going to play this weekend, but from your point of view, the hitting coach and what they're limited to at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in a bubble when it comes to like what they're doing just from the hitting side. We're kind of stuck in the cage or on field. Nico hit on the field today. It went really, really well, and Shaw's kind of getting back at it too. So just kind of staying within their parameters of we have some swing counts that they need to stay under, and that's all normal. It's not prohibitive in any way, but we're just trying to make sure that we ramp them up and get them to where they're trying to get to at that time. So both of them are in awesome spots. Nico has been incredibly understanding with what we're trying to do with him and knowing that we can't go too much mechanics right now because we're trying to make sure that he's healthy. But the way that his mind thinks and the way that he thinks about hitting, we've hit the ground running with some of the mechanical stuff that he's wanted to accomplish.
Shaw's, because of the oblique, how different are those swing counts and how much in repetition, 7, 8, how does it go?
Yeah, unfortunately the obliques are pretty common nowadays, especially with hitters and guys that are wound pretty tight. So we've had some history with them. Obviously, I had one a couple years ago. So we have a pretty good idea of how we kind of structure guys' work. But it's really up to them at the end of the day of how does it feel? There's a ton of communication, and if something does feel a little bit off, we're not hesitant to just shut it down. We haven't had that with him yet, so that's been good.
Kevin, go ahead.
With Nico and he was dealing with that form
Yeah.
for so much of
Yeah.
last year. What are you anticipating in terms of what a healthy swing looks like? Maybe adding power. What ripple effects do you see there?
Yeah, I don't think it really changes much of the mechanical side. I think there was some that he had to manipulate the barrel a little bit just because he didn't feel like he had quite the bat speed that he normally would. But his mechanical part is so unique, the way that he moves the bat to ball. So it didn't take away from a ton of it, but I think we will see an uptick in the bat speed and him impacting the ball a little more.
With Kevin Alcantara, tall guys, long lever guys,
Yep.
there's always a concern for swing and miss.
Yep.
What can he do to compensate that, or what does he do?
Yeah, I think one thing it hasn't been a surprise, but what we've noticed with Kevin, he's put on some weight. That's noticeable. I think he put on 18 pounds. And with Kevin before, he was, like you said, long and lanky and had those long levers, and he wasn't quite strong enough yet. So his swing was kind of long. He'd kind of take out a lot of slack and then try and create more. But with the bulkiness that he's put on, from what we've seen, his swing is really tightened up. And with that, he won't make decisions as quickly. So he'll be able to get the ball a little bit deeper just because of the way that he's wound a little bit tighter now. So that's been a huge positive for him, just adding that strength, not only for strength, but it actually helped clean up some of the mechanics of his swing.
And I was just to say, letting it get deeper with his size and everything, he can still, like we saw the other day.
Yeah, I mean, that ball that he hit the other day, it was at the top of the zone. It's probably not a pitch I'd want him swinging at 10 out of 10 times, but, he has the ability to get to that, and he does make contact. It's just some of the chase it's got him in the past. So if we can kind of speed that process up of him not having to, make decisions with those long levers, that he can let it travel a little bit more. And that ball that he hit the other day, he backed it up, and it was almost like he hit it off the center of his body, and it still was like 105 off the wall.
What about ball identification drills? Do you do a lot with your hitters? In this case, Alcantara, the idea of not swinging, but verbalizing what it is and what he sees. How important is that in your
Yeah,
drills?
I mean, we have a number of different drills that we do. We have, where we have a little plate that goes in front of the plate that has balls 1 through 7, and the guys have to call out what number baseball that is. We do mixed BP, where guys throw sliders and fastballs, move the machine. We have a machine called a traject, where we can mix pitches. So there's a ton of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. For the most part, it's drilling that into them, but we still have to go out and let them do it out in the games. And I think like Kevin getting a taste of that big leagues last year, and then starting off to a good spring has been a good confidence boost for him.
You say too that if he can keep his body right and healthy, like he thinks he can be a superstar.
Yeah.
What is that kind of mentality? What can that bring a guy when he's at the plate and knowing how great he can be?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talk about with our guys a lot of like how good you are and how good you can be. This game can beat you down. It's a long season. The pitchers are really good, and you can have 0 for 10, 0 for 12s, but when you have that confidence that you step into the box every single time, like we're trying to breed that here of like we want more guys to have that kind of confidence.
So you worked with a lot of the young guys.
Yeah.
Right? Is he one of the highest ceiling offensive talents?
Yeah, I think you just physically look at him and know that, that's a guy that can play center field with that size. He runs, he gets really good jumps, but on the hitting side, we've known that it's going to take a little bit longer just because he was so raw. But those raw skills are what was attractive to us in that trade, and he's starting to come into that of it's turning into a player that can impact the baseball. Once he starts making better decisions, he can be a superstar.
How do you help a guy like Hoerner mentally get through a season like last year, where he's playing at one point with a broken hand, the other point where we never knew about, but forearm issues? How much can a hitting coach help in those situations?
I would hope a lot. I think we have a really good relationship with trust. The hitters are in our cage a lot, so there's a lot of conversations that happen, and a lot of that is how you feeling today, what's kind of going through your body, and so we talk a lot. They don't give us all the information, but they give us quite a bit. So we know that he's not at 100% today. So whether that game plan is we're going to try and hammer the ball in the inside half or spit on balls away, we get a chance to talk about some of that stuff. But you just know that he wasn't at full strength for the whole year. So excited that he's going to get a full season or start to a season where he's 100% healthy.
Coach, with much of this roster necessarily not having an early start like this, so early, where do you feel like just the entire hitting core really is as a whole when it comes to just being at 100%? Do you feel like they're getting closer to that right now, or do you feel like it's going to take more time?
Yeah, I think guys knew where they were supposed to be at this time of the year. We were really, communicated with them hey, we're setting up for this date when we leave for Japan, so getting your legs underneath you. The hitting stuff, guys start a little bit later nowadays. I don't think they hit as much early. So most of our guys started hitting in December as opposed to maybe the end of December. So they understood what time of year they needed to be ready for. And it looks like right now everybody's there.
What have you taught Kyle Tucker?
No, but
Serious question. Now that you fresh eyes on a new guy for a couple of weeks, I'm curious, what do you see that maybe makes him a star?
Yeah, with Kyle, he's obviously incredibly talented and physically gifted. He has a unique swing, I would say. The way that he kind of lays the barrel off is not something that we see in the big leagues very often. So I've actually watched his swing a ton. I always kind of tried to figure it out a couple years ago, like, why does this guy make such good decisions? How does he make so much contact? And how does he hit it so hard? He's obviously a big, strong guy, but I think he is so good at his game plan and what he's looking for, and he's willing to take pitches that he knows that he can't do damage on. And that's why you see the great decisions and the plus contact, and then equals damage just because he's got such good bat speed. And I mean, he just impacts the baseball with a ton of leverage.
After a couple of years, can you actually, as a hitting coach, train a player to understand the home field and what works and what doesn't work, times of year? I mean, it sounds like a bad question because everybody is who they are, but can that ballpark be, is there a way to go about hitting at Wrigley Field?
Yeah, I think there is, and we talk about it a lot in the cage. I almost use a golf analogy of what club do you have today. It's like you don't always get to use your driver every single swing, every single at bat. So there's times where you're going to have to take a 7-iron out, and that may be because of the wind, it may be because of the pitcher, it may be because of how you're feeling that day. So those conversations happen kind of behind the scenes, and that's part of the game plan that we have going into the day. And it's really hard for some guys to hit low line drives to the opposite field, and it's hard for some guys to pull balls in the air. So we know their makeup, we kind of know their DNA of what they're really good at. So we're not going to ask them to do something that they're not good at and not give them a good opportunity, but we are trying to make them very versatile and give them more options.